Well, at least 15 people are dead after a U.S. Army veteran flying an ISIS flag plowed into a crowd of people in New Orleans on New Year's Day. Officials are now investigating his ties to the terrorist organization. ILTV's Shosh Bedrosian is here with us in studio to discuss the details. Now, Shosh, of course, thank you for being here with us. What can you tell us about this individual who carried out this horrific attack?
Yeah, so officials right now are investigating if Shamsuddin Jabbar was working with anyone or if he was working alone. President Biden did say that he did post videos on social media prior to the attack expressing some type of inspiration from ISIS. So they are looking into that, and we do have some more details on what people should know about what happened.
What was supposed to be an exciting New Year's Eve celebration in the French Quarter in New Orleans turned out to be the scene of a terror attack after police say Shamsuddin Jabbar plowed a pickup truck with an ISIS flag into a crowd, killing more than 15 people and injuring dozens more, including 2 Israelis. The FBI is investigating Jabbar, who is a U.S. citizen and Army veteran who served in Afghanistan, and his possible connect to police officers on scene before the attack, indicating he was inspired by ISIS and expressed a desire to kill. New Orleans police chief said measures were in place to protect people from a situation like this.
This particular terrorist drove around onto the sidewalk and got around the hard target, where he did have a car there, we had barriers there, we had officers there, and they still got around. Now, the wedges that you see out there as well, we knew that that had malfunction problems. And I want you to understand, let's say we put the wedge up and it got stuck. There is no way that ambulance could get in or out, people couldn't get in and out. So we knew that these were malfunction. So we did indeed have a plan, but the terrorist defeated it.
Now, Shosh, we know also that 2 of the injured were actually Israeli citizens. What do we know about these 2 injured Israelis so far?
Yeah, well, first off, just looking at that video, it's chilling to see. Like you said, we know 2 Israelis are seriously injured. We know right now both of them are on ventilators, unable to communicate at this time. One of them is in stable condition. The other one is definitely more seriously injured from what happened. We know that Israeli officials are on the scene trying to assess the situation there, and they're hoping that they will be able to speak with both of these victims tomorrow.
All right. Well, thank you, Shosh, for that insight. We wish all of the victims, of course, a speedy and full recovery. It's day 454 of the war in Gaza, and there are signs of a new IDF operation in Jabalia. The IDF issued an urgent warning to remaining civilians to leave the area for their safety. The warning came amid 6 straight days of rocket fire towards Israel from northern Gaza. The latest this morning when a rocket was fired at Holit. It was intercepted by Israeli air defense. We have more from ILTV's Steve Leibowitz.
The army ordered the remaining civilians in Jabalia in northern Gaza to head to Gaza City ahead of a new IDF offensive. The announcement came amid reports that Hamas has been rapidly replacing its ranks with new terror recruits. Hamas has reportedly recruited thousands of new fighters in Gaza, and according to Israeli media reports, they now have as many as 23,000 gunmen. The organized Hamas brigades were destroyed in IDF ops over the past year. The new recruits are operating in small terror cells and try to target IDF troops that are deployed in Gaza to prevent their reemergence. The IDF says it's killed between 17,000 and 20,000 Hamas and Islamic Jihad terrorists over the course of the war. Some 6,000 Gazans have been detained by the IDF during the war, and at least 4,300 remain in custody. The army says that the numbers of new Hamas fighters and their weapons are inferior to earlier in the war, and many are untrained minors. The army has been countering the resurgence on the ground and in the air. The Air Force carried out more than 1,400 airstrikes in Gaza in the past month alone. Meanwhile, no good news in the hostage for ceasefire talks. With Prime Minister Netanyahu still recovering from surgery, the Security Cabinet canceled the meeting called to discuss the issue. The talks have reportedly grounded to a halt. There are currently no Israeli Israeli teams in Doha or Cairo working on a potential agreement, and there are no plans to send one. Defense Minister Katz called on Hamas to unilaterally release the hostages and halt its fire on Israel or suffer unprecedented blows, the likes of which Gaza has yet to experience. Katz said that Israel was willing to make far-reaching compromises to receive the hostages, but he called on Gazan citizens to rise up against Hamas to end the suffering in Gaza.
In Samaria, an IDF soldier was lightly injured in a terrorist car ramming. The attacker was neutralized at the scene. According to the army, the driver accelerated towards troops in the village of Deir Qadis. After hitting and lightly injuring a female soldier, the driver tried to flee the scene, but soldiers opened fire and he was hit. The terrorist is reportedly in serious condition. In the same village, a car bomb attack was carried out against troops in the village of Deir Qadis. The terrorist was neutralized as he tried to escape. One soldier was lightly injured in the attack. The latest attack came as the Shin Bet issued its annual report on operations in Jerusalem, Judea, and Samaria. It foiled a reported 1,040 significant terror attacks. The list includes 689 planned shootings, 326 explosive devices neutralized, 9 car rammings, 2 suicide bombings, and 1 kidnapping. The Islamic Republic of Iran is still reeling from a series of devastating setbacks to its terror proxies. Its supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, is sounding defiant despite his losses. ILTV's Steve Leibowitz has more.
Al-Assad and his regime in Syria are gone. Hezbollah is battered and in retreat in Lebanon. Hamas has been mostly destroyed in Gaza, and the Houthis in Yemen are still firing while taking a beating from Israel and the U.S. That's what remains of Iran's proxies in its war against Israel. Speaking at the 5th anniversary of the U.S. assassination of Revolutionary Guard commander Qasem Soleimani, Khamenei said that the resistance front was the constant goal. Even after pulling out its citizens during the fall of the al-Assad regime, Iran is signaling that it's not done in meddling.
به وسیله بیگانگان آمریکا از یک طرف رژیم صهیونی از یک طرف بعضی کشورهای متعرض دیگه از یک طرف وارد میشن. البته اینا نمیتوانن بمانن. سوریه متعلق به مردم سوریه است. کسانی که به خاک مردم سوریه تعرض کردند یک روزی در مقابل قدرت جوانهای غیور سوری مجبور خواهند شد برن عقب.
The head of the snake urged Hezbollah in Lebanon and the Houthis in Yemen to continue confronting Israel and the U.S.
لبنان نماد مقاومت و پیروز خواهد شد. یمن هم نماد مقاومت و پیروز خواهد شد. و انشاءالله دشمن و متجاوزین در رأس همه اونها آمریکای طماع و جنایتکار مجبور خواهند شد دست از سر مردم منطقه و ملت‌های منطقه بردارن و با ذلت از این منطقه انشاءالله خارج بشن.
Khamenei appears willing to commit his proxies to further battle and destruction, but as usual is not committing his own forces. Iran itself is badly exposed after absorbing massive Israeli airstrikes on its air defenses in October.
Israel is rapidly approaching the end of the mostly successful temporary ceasefire in Lebanon, and Hezbollah is already issuing threats. Let's take a closer look at what may happen on the Israel-Lebanon front in the coming weeks.
The northern border remains a key focus for the IDF as tensions simmer during the 60-day ceasefire and questions arise over what will take place the day after. This week, a senior IDF Northern Command officer emphasized the importance of the IDF maintaining strategic positions in Lebanon to protect northern communities, which received over 16,000 rockets and drones since October 7th, displacing 70,000 people. Approximately 60% of the homes in northern towns such as Kiryat Shmona have been damaged, and rocket attacks have caused an estimated $1.5 billion in damage for the northern communities. Since November 27th, a ceasefire has been in effect, requiring the Lebanese army and UNIFIL to disarm Hezbollah and force them north of the Litani River. The IDF will gradually withdraw in accordance with the disarmament of Hezbollah. However, Hezbollah has violated this agreement already 99 times, prompting IDF response and targeting of weapons caches, and terror infrastructure. During the ceasefire, Hezbollah was caught transferring weapons to southern Lebanon, and multiple hidden weapons facilities have been discovered by the IDF. Yet Hezbollah is already threatening over Israel not pulling out fast enough from Lebanon, despite the terror group's lack of compliance. Mahmoud Kamati, a member of parliament for Hezbollah, stated this week, Day 61 brings change. Forces in Lebanon will become occupiers and we will respond accordingly. Israeli government officials have stated that the IDF will do whatever necessary to enable residents of the north to return home. But that can only happen if Hezbollah is not permitted to rebuild on the southern Lebanese border. MK Avigdor Lieberman stated that Israel should not withdraw from Lebanon until the Lebanese army fully deploys along the border to prevent Hezbollah from plunging Lebanon into another escalation of conflict. Only time will tell how Hezbollah will act come Day 61, but the weakening of Iranian regime influence in the region through elimination of weapons smuggling routes to Hezbollah means that rearming the Lebanese terror group will be more difficult than before.
Well, now joining us to discuss this ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah, as well as the future for the residents of Israel's north, is Sarit Zahavi, the CEO of Alma Research and Education Center. Sarit, thank you for joining us. Always a pleasure to have you on. To start, Alma has documented 99 violations of the current ceasefire by Hezbollah. Can you explain what some of these violations are for our viewers?
Eventually, when you see Hezbollah military operatives approaching back to the areas that IDF took, or try to transfer weapons from one area to another, pulling out weapons from homes and trying to hide them elsewhere, these are all violations. The idea is that Hezbollah will not be able to presence in those areas south to the Litani River and not be able to recover its military presence over there. The problem is that IDF is actually not presence in all of the area that we are talking about. IDF maneuver was only to a few kilometers into Lebanon, while the area that's supposed to be completely disarmed of Hezbollah weapons is about 25 kilometers from the border.
Now, when it comes to the compliance or lack thereof, is the Lebanese army doing what's necessary, and will they be able to control Hezbollah now that the Syrian smuggling routes have been cut off with the fall of Bashar al-Assad? Or do you anticipate that Israel will really have to intervene in a serious way?
To tell you the truth, I think that by the expectations that were created following this ceasefire, what we wanted to see is Lebanese army disarming Hezbollah in South Lebanon, just like the IDF is doing, as I've said, in the areas where IDF is not operating. And we are not seeing that. There is no one single report of Lebanese army loading trucks of munitions against Palestinian terrorist fractions in Lebanon, but we don't see major activity of the Lebanese army to disarm Hezbollah in South Lebanon according to the agreement.
Now, is this as a result of Hezbollah's involvement in every sector of society in Lebanon, an effective colonization of Lebanon, and that is why the Lebanese army is simply unable, or are they unwilling?
I think it's a combination of both, because eventually the Lebanese army and Hezbollah, in a way, they are brothers. You can have one family, one Muslim Shiite family, where one brother will go and serve in the Lebanese army, and the other one will serve or will recruit to Hezbollah. That's one problem. The second problem is that, yes, we don't feel, unfortunately, that the opponents to Hezbollah in Lebanon change their point of view, change their approach, and truly understand that Hezbollah is different, that Israel caused huge damages to Hezbollah, and now is the time to stand up against it. We don't see this happening enough. And when the Lebanese want to stand up against something, they know how to do it. They know how to go out to the streets. And it's not happening enough. It is happening mainly in the social media, but not in the streets and not by the Lebanese army itself.
Now, about the return of the northern residents, of which you are one of them, what is it going to take to be able to secure the northern border and have a calm enough situation for these tens of thousands of displaced Israelis to return home?
So personally, I would say I live 9 kilometers from the border. It means that I was not evacuated, but I did experience the war daily. I was under fire. I saw the interceptions like you show now from my balcony every day. My daughter didn't go to school for a long time. during this war. And I think that the first thing that must happen is that we will not see Hezbollah military operatives standing just on the other side of the border. This is very clear, that we will see the Lebanese army evacuating munition just like the IDF had done. I must tell you, I visited the exhibition of the IDF of all the weapons that was brought from Lebanon into Israel, and the amounts are truly overwhelming. Even though I knew everything, I was totally overwhelmed to see the amount of missiles and rockets and guns and the military deployment that was just all over the place, while Lebanese army and UNIFIL had the mandate, had the opportunity for 18 years to take off all these kind of weapons.
Extremely disturbing, definitely. Well, thank you for joining us, Sarit, and for providing some insight as to what's going on that northern border.
Thank you.
Now, after months of speculation about a reported secret operation deep inside Syria, the IDF is now confirming that their plan was successfully executed back in September. ILTV's Shosh Bedrosian has the details on what officials are calling one of the riskiest and most daring operation in recent years.
It's been 4 months since rumors circulated about a possible operation deep inside Syria that took down an advanced Iranian missile facility. And finally, the IDF is revealing how it was done. Back in September, members of the Shaldag unit of the Israeli Air Force carried out a high-risk operation targeting the Iranian facility near Masyaf, north of Lebanon. They say the facility was used by Iran to produce precision missiles for Hezbollah. With the help from dozens of fighter jets, helicopters, and drones, the commandos were able to neutralize guards at the facility and extract significant intelligence material. They then rigged the building with explosives and detonated it remotely. Forces were on the ground deep in the territory, and there were no Israeli casualties. An official called the operation the most daring and riskiest commando operation the IDF has conducted outside the country in recent years, also saying it was heroic, high risk, and meticulously planned by the Israeli Air Force.
Former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant announced last night he was resigning in the Knesset. Gallant said he would remain in the ruling Likud party. ILTV's Steve Leibowitz has the full story.
Defense Minister Gallant was fired by Prime Minister Netanyahu in November after months of disagreements over the conduct of the war and the issue of the ultra-Orthodox draft, and it had been unclear what the Likud MK would do next. While he was leaving the Knesset, Gallant said he was not leaving politics and would remain a member of the ruling Likud party. Speculation is that he plans to run for the leadership of Likud against Netanyahu in the next party primaries.
כמו בשדה הקרב, כך גם בשירות הציבורי. יש רגעים בהם צריך לעצור, לקיים הערכת מצב ולבחור את כיוון הפעולה על מנת להגיע למטרות הנדרשות.
Gallant made clear that he takes full responsibility for everything that happened during his 2-year tenure as defense minister.
כשר הביטחון לשעבר, אני אחראי לכל מה שאירע, מתחילת תפקידי בחודשים שלפני המלחמה ועד לסיום תפקידי בחלוף למעלה משנה מתחילת המלחמה.
The former defense minister spent his entire adult life in the army or public service, and he plans to continue.
מדינת ישראל הייתה